A compressor, at the end of the day, is about making you more intelligible, meaning somebody can understand what you say, and it's easier for them to decode what we're saying. I guess we really don't think about it. I talk, Donnie talks, and then we hear each other and we go, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And we get it, quote unquote. But there's a whole process going on in our brain to decode. And if he spoke a different language, I don't understand what he's saying, or maybe I only get bits and pieces of it if he was speaking a language that I don't understand. When we're doing voiceover, they don't get to see our face. And so a compressor, when done right, is going to fill in some blanks and make it easier for people to understand what your message is toward them.
Yeah, and until about 100 years ago or so, humans didn't have to really worry much about just hearing somebody's voice. You always saw somebody when they were speaking to you. Tell us what happened about a century ago that started to change that for the first time.
Yeah, well, I think it's, if I remember my stats right, don't quote me on this, but it's 1896 is the first time a radio was patented. Marconi was the first radio guy that got a patent on that. And then it was probably the 1930s or so before radios were available. And one of our presidents, Franklin, I believe, I get it mixed up. But point is this.
Franklin
About
Delano Roosevelt, you're
That's
talking
the
about
guy,
his
see?
fireside chats? Yes.
Yes. So in that point, what the backstory on that is that he didn't like that he wasn't getting great press, so he decided to circumvent the press and go directly to people and tell them his story, and he got elected. So it worked great. And in that process, by the time you get to about the 50s, then everybody had a radio that had come down in price, and it wasn't everybody, but it was very, very prevalent across the United States. And when people were talking on radio, then everyone's sitting around the radio listening, trying to hear what they're saying. The Lone Ranger was on. They listened to the story. They like the story, and they needed to understand them. And some engineers figured out that, boy, I could do some things that would make it more comfortable for the listeners to understand. And that was the beginning of compression. It's been around, like for most of us, our whole lives, we've hit it. But if you think back before radio, you and I could never talk unless we could see each other. I mean, this is amazing. Zoom, you're 1,500 miles away from me, 1,000 miles away. I don't know what it is, but we're not obviously not in the same room. I don't think Zoom has been around 100 years. Well, but radio hasn't been around 100 years either. But imagine before that, our great grandfather, grandmother, when they wanted to talk, they had to be within shouting distance of each other in order to hear them. And they visually could see. So our brain is optimized for two senses. And so the reason a compressor exists is and is so widely used today, is to fill in some information that normally our brain was optimized to have two senses, and now it only has one.